Good day everyone, I am Adrian Jairus Emmanuel El Corpus and I am here to discuss to you invasive species. So what are invasive species? Invasive species can drastically destroy or alter the flow of an ecosystem. These non-native species are unwanted because of their impacts on the native species and natural resources. It disrupts and threatens the natural system of an environment, can also cause the native species to suffer. As invasive species enter a new sector, it will reduce biodiversity and deplete the natural resources that the native humans, animals, and plants rely on for survival. They have no natural predator, which will be difficult for their population to decrease. For this video, I am focusing on aquatic invasive species. Aquatic invasive species are organisms that infest the water ecosystem. They can infect the health of native species around them and even the well-being of humans. These species disseminate due to the actions of humans, like dumping contents of an aquarium to a lake, organisms being transferred accidentally, fishing, and ship ballasts. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the consequences of these invasive species have cost them billions of dollars. Here in the Philippines, invasive fish species threaten fishermen and the fishery industry. Some of these invasive species were introduced at first, but these species have shown to cause damage. Hence, they were concluded to be invasive. It has affected agricultural productivity, native fisheries, property values, and all over the health of the native species in the ecosystem. So, how did humans influence this kind of native species? Humans are the largest spreaders of this invasive species. Humans are the most capable species on the planet. After all, we can travel long distances by our inventions, right? But it is also because of this gift that we destroy the environment. Unconsciously, spreading invasive species can be done in more ways, and sometimes they can be caused unintentionally. From releasing your aquarium pets to the wild, to having it as a stowaway in your boat or your yacht if you're rich. Zebra mussels are an exemplary example. These aquatic organisms are invasive species transferred from Europe to America. It disturbs the aquatic ecosystems by absorbing plankton, which is food for native fishes. As a result, algae blooms grow and occur and deprive the water of oxygen. The point is, thinking about the environments we go through is a lot more important than we think it is. In the US alone, 30% of endangered species are listed as such because of the effects of invasive species. Just imagine how much damage is caused by these invasive species on the environment that they inhabit on a global scale. Let's now go to the effect of aquatic invasive species. So generally, invasive species can outcompete indigenous species for resources such as food and habitat due to how easy it is for invasive species to reproduce, multiply, and thrive compared to the local fauna and flora. Alien species can pose threats such as driving indigenous species to extinction. They may even degrade the quality of the said resources. Indirectly, invasive species might be disease carriers that are outside the native species range. These native species might lack immunity, antibodies, or experience with such diseases. It may further accelerate endangering them. For the marine ecosystem, specifically, this will impact various aquatic-related industries. Because of the threat the exotic species brings to the local ecosystem, people will naturally have to find a way to control them, which will be a very costly endeavor. This will also increase operating costs for maintaining aquatic habitats and recreational sites, Certain species such as shellfish or various structures and equipment, quite possibly too, these invasive species can also interfere with dams, water treatment plants, and drinking water production facilities, further contaminating the local water system. So how can we help? How can humans help in preventing the spread of aquatic invasive species? Given the fact that aquatic invasive species can spread quickly and can harm native species within that area, humans could only prevent invasive species to stop it from spreading. Humans, in one way or another, are mostly responsible for bringing invasive species to another habitat. Therefore, it is our responsibility as well to make sure that we don't bring in invasive species with us to another environment. Eradicating an invasive species that has settled in a specific area is nearly impossible. That's why it needs to be prevented before it even begins to spread. A good way in preventing an invasive species is through fishing. Use clean fishing gears when you go fishing and make sure to drain every gear you have to use to prevent invasive species from inhabiting your gears. If fishing is the only way you can think of as prevention, then it is suggested that you use a living bait that is placed in a bucket and dispose them in the trash instead of throwing them in the water. Cleaning your fishing gears and removing plants and animals of the boat after fishing is also a must. Knowing what an aquatic invasive species looks like is important, and you will be knowledgeable about how it started spreading through the information you have acquired. Another good way to prevent invasive species from spreading is to report it if you saw an aquatic invasive species. Collaborate with officials that know about this invasive species and let them handle the situation if you're not knowledgeable with these invasive species. That's all. Thank you for listening, and may God bless us all.